Given that I grew up in a pretty rural area, which was just north of the village of Wales in Wisconsin, officially in the township of Delafield, a lot of country with a lot of trees. It's kind of remarkable that I didn't get my hands on a chainsaw as a kid. But I guess part of that is my dad didn't have a chainsaw. The neighbors that did, they weren't going to like hand it over to somebody that, wasn't their kid, because chainsaws can be a little bit dangerous. They're kind of heavy objects. And, my dad died when I was quite young. So although there was, a good bit of using of chainsaws around us, I just saw it as something that other people did. I first got my hands on one when I was in the Army. So I would have been about 18 years old. And as you may know from some of my other stories, I was what they call a combat engineer, a 12 Bravo in the American Army. That's the MOS, Military Occupational Specialty. And combat engineer, you're less an engineer, you're more combat. So what do? A lot of explosives, minefields, either laying them or blowing them up, obstacles like putting up concertina fences, actually the wire fences around the minefield so that your own troops don't go into them, building bridges, all of that sort of stuff. And, you often do a lot of things basically as infantry, but we were mechanized. We were in the 1st Armored Division in Germany at that time, and we had armored personnel carriers. So, think back to like Vietnam, right? The M113, which was basically like a big box on tracks made out of aluminum with, a 50 caliber machine gun on top and pulling a trailer behind us. And the trailer, because we were engineers, was just full of equipment, the different things that we might need to use. Some of them, like post hole diggers, we were constantly using, right? Or the drivers that we would use to drive stakes into the ground, all the snips that we had. Other things, we didn't even know exactly what they were. They were just stuck in the back. And then, there were chainsaws. I think each trailer probably had a chainsaw or two in it. And, chainsaws are very useful for a lot of activities. Now, we didn't actually use our chainsaws when we were out in the field for any exercises. And I think that's in part because when we were in Germany, the Germans really didn't like us messing up their terrain, right? We weren't allowed to like build Bailey bridges or anything like that. They actually had parts of the road that had manholes where you could just drop explosives down, kind of set up for you in advance. So they didn't want you chainsawing their trees down or anything like that. So you might say, well, how did you actually get to use a chainsaw then? Well, I mentioned that we would do minefields. And you don't work most of the time with live explosives. You work with dummy mines, right? So that you're not taking the chance of like blowing yourself up, which the people that we were training to fight, the Warsaw Pact and Soviet forces, their combat engineer training, they had a lot of casualties because they would work with live explosives all the time. The U.S. forces, a little bit smarter that way. So what we needed were a whole bunch of fake mines that we could use. What would be about the size of an anti-tank mine? Telephone poles. If you took the telephone pole and you cut it up into all these sections, a telephone pole's like, 20, 25 feet high, maybe higher. And if you're cutting it into like 4-inch sections, well, then, you could get anywhere from 60 to 75 mines out of that, right? Fake mines. And so one day, I remember I got called by one of our sergeants, and he's like, hey, you're on this duty over here. You're going to be making a whole bunch of dummy mines. Go down, talk to this sergeant here. He's going to get you squared away and set up. And so there were two of us, I think. And we were told, bring your like overalls, your protective stuff, and your eye gear as well. That's really important because you get all this, sawdust flying. And so he's like, have either of you handled a chainsaw before? And I was like, I've seen them work, but I've never actually used one before. And he's like, okay, so I'm going to give you a brief course on chainsaw operation and, more importantly, chainsaw safety. Here are the things to do. Here are the things not to do, right? Keep your eye gear on, protecting your eyes at all times. I know it's a hot day. I better not come here and catch you taking your eye protection off, because if I do, you're getting written up, right? And watch your feet. You're going to have to stand on the thing that you're cutting. Make sure you don't cut your toes off or anything, because these chainsaws are no joke, right? So that he fires up the gas-powered chainsaw, and we get going, and he shows us like how to prime it and all of those sorts of things. And he watches us cut the stuff a couple times, and then he's like, all right, you guys seem squared away. You seem to be knowing what you're doing. I'll be back in an hour. I want to see this amount cut up. We're going to need all of these dummy mines for the next, field exercise that we're doing. By the end of the week or something like that. So for like a couple hours, me and this other guy, taking breaks, of course, it's kind of a hot day, we're just sitting there chainsawing away and, having a great time. I loved how the chainsaw would slice through these, these poles, these telephone poles. I thought it was really cool. And, we ran out of gas and, had to like prime it up again. We had to take breaks in part because the chain gets hot. You don't want to break the chain or anything like that. And it was, it was a pretty warm day. And of course, I'm a smoker at that time. So we're smoking and drinking out of our canteens and stuff like that. So that was my introduction to using a chainsaw. And anytime that we needed to do that duty after that, I'd be like, I'm happy to do that. People were, kind of like, what is with this guy? Why is he so into chainsaws? I just thought it was a fun thing to do. I didn't pick up another chainsaw for years, more than a decade after that. I mean, I saw people using them. I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. But I didn't need it for any of the work that I was doing. Even when I was doing, actually, I take that back. I was a tree cutter for a 3-week period because I worked for a guy who was just a complete disgusting a-hole. And we did use chainsaws, but he didn't let me use them most of the time. He wanted to be the guy that did the cutting, and I would be like the one to pull the stuff because I was like a laborer and throw it into the wood chipper. And then I learned to drive a dump truck, which was cool at that time, which was a lot of fun. But I couldn't stand the guy, and so I quit. So I don't think I actually got to use the chainsaw for that, even though I was like, I did it in the Army. And he was like, I don't care, kid. So it was one of those cash money jobs where you get paid. There's no like official record of it. And I only lasted 3 weeks with him before I quit because I just couldn't stand him. So anyway, long story short, fast forward to moving to Indiana, living on my family's land, buying a house with the inheritance from now my mother dying, getting married, having, kids, and settling down. And settling down in my Uncle Hubert and Aunt Therese, their old house, which I've talked about in other videos as well, Chez Lemrees. And my Uncle Scott and Aunt Bibian lived just across the way. My Uncle Scott, he's a very outdoorsy guy. And he had a chainsaw. He had a steel. And, there were a lot of woods and stuff like that. There was a lot of like reclaiming of land that had been allowed to go kind of wild that needed to be done while we were living there. And so, like when a tree would fall down, Uncle Scott would get out his chainsaw and he'd cut it up into bits, and then we'd, haul it somewhere and split the wood, and then we'd have stuff for our fireplaces. But after a while, I was like, I need to get a chainsaw. And so I started talking to my uncle, and I'm like, so, how big of a chainsaw should I get? and what kind should I get? And he's like, well, let's go into town and take a look at what they've got at the shop that actually sells chainsaws. And they only had two brands, Husqvarna and Steel. Uncle Scott had a Steel. He's like, Husqvarna, that's good too. The other one that's really big is Poulan, but I don't see any Poulan stuff here. And, how big do you want it? Well, let's take some down and see how they feel in your hands. You probably want as big of a chainsaw as you can feasibly handle because, you can always go smaller, right? If you have a log that's not too big and you've got a big chainsaw, you can easily cut that up. But if you got like a really big tree trunk that you need to cut up and you could have had an additional 2 to 4 inches on the bar, well, that's not going to be very good for you, right? You can cut it, but you're going to have to do some like maneuvering and it might not go the way you want. So figure out like how much chainsaw you can handle. And I was a big guy, right? I'm bigger than Uncle Scott too. So interestingly, I didn't buy a chainsaw that day. But I was working up at Indiana State Prison in Michigan City, and I would go to the Meijer to buy groceries that I would then take home after work sometimes. And I go in one day, and I'm not sure exactly how I wound up seeing this, but they had Poulan chainsaws like on super sale. And I was like, let me take a look at this. And, I ended up buying one. I forget exactly how long it was. The blade or the bar was about I'd say about this big, maybe actually a little bit bigger. And it was reduced like 70% off, and it came with its own case and like an extra chain and, all this cool stuff. So I was like, all right, I'm getting this. I take it home. And, I go over to Uncle Scott and Aunt Bib's place, and I show it to him, and he's like, oh, that's a good one. You got a great deal on this. And I was like, okay, been a very long time since I have actually used a chainsaw. Can you give me like a crash course? And he's like, yeah, on the weekend, we'll get up early. We'll cut down one of the trees that needs it, and then I'll show you how to do things. I'll watch you a little bit, and then we'll tag team it, and we'll get it done, right? So he's showing me, okay, here's how you gas it. Here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to know about the blade. This one's got a couple different features than mine does. Reminding you your foot's going on the log, but you better make sure that you know exactly where that blade is going because you don't want to hit your foot. Eye protection on at all times. Something that we didn't always do, me or Scott, both of us ended up with getting crap in our eyes at one point. I actually had a little bit of wood stuck in one eyeball for about 6 months before it worked its way out, right? Because you get hot and lazy and you take it off like a dummy. And so then, we cut down the dead tree that needed cutting down. It was about I would say about that thick at the trunk. And we're working on it, cutting it up into the right size pieces. You want to make sure that the cuts are, all the way through. You want to think about how you're cutting. It's not a simple thing all the time, right? And I was fortunate. Uncle Scott was a guy who worked with his hands all his life. He was a master drywall hanger who was very thoughtful about what he would do. And that transferred over to tree cutting as well. It's not like strategic management, but you do have to see what you're doing and figure out where the cuts are going to go so you're not getting in your own way. Now, once he'd done that, I was off to the races, right? So I start clearing some of the land that since Uncle Hubert had passed away a decade or so before we took it over, a lot of trees had taken over, some bushes that also could benefit from chainsawing, particularly poplar, which is a softwood that grows very fast, got really big and was crowding out other trees. So we wanted to thin all that stuff out, and that's what I would do. I would go out there in the areas that I was reclaiming, get that chainsaw, start cutting trees down, cut them up into manageable pieces, sometimes drag them to a place where I could do it better. And I had like tons and tons of wood because we had a fireplace. Actually, we had a wood-burning stove in the basement for quite a while as well that we would use. And it was nice. You know, we had some good oak and poplar and some other things as well. And, you know, you got to like make sure you keep your blades sharp. So you take them to the store to get them sharpened, and you got to swap your blades out every so often and make sure they're the right tension. I remember the first time I had a blade come off, which was a little scary, right? You're cutting away and suddenly the blade is loose. Fortunately, mine had a blade guard on it that like stops everything right away. But, you know, you're wearing big, thick leather gloves to make sure you're not going to like, you know, if anything goes wrong, things aren't going to go wrong with you. Generally, you'd wear like steel-toed boots as well. I found that was quite smart and helpful because the last thing you want is to drop the saw on your feet. So I did that. Well, it would be from 2002 to about 2008 when then I moved down to North Carolina to take a job at Fayetteville State University, ended up getting divorced, and the chainsaw was one of the things that I took. And I've carried it around with me. I haven't had a chance to use it. No, actually, I did have a chance to use it. I take that back. When my new wife, Andy, now my, you know, long-term wife, we've been married, well, it'll be 14 years very soon. We lived in upstate New York in an apartment above a garage, what's called a carriage house apartment. And I did get the chainsaw out to do some cutting of some stuff in a wooded area there. But I mostly used my maul, my wood splitting maul to split the stuff. I didn't do an awful lot of chainsawing. And then it went back in its case. That's where it's been since that time. So it's been carried around from New York to one apartment in Milwaukee, and now where we live in Milwaukee, it's actually in a storage locker. I don't know if I'll get a chance to use it again. I probably should just see if I want to sell it or something, but I always hold on to it just in case we move out to some place in the country. I wouldn't mind using it again because I always found it a lot of fun. It's kind of relaxing in a way. And also, you know, like I mentioned, it's kind of mentally challenging and it's good work to do. But I haven't, you know, fired it up for so long. I'm sure I definitely would have to have it tuned up by a professional before I could use it. I probably could use a crash course in chainsaw use and safety again before I get my hands on it. So that is the story that I have for you about chainsaws.